I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being, and it's going to pay.
I think that I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff in my past, and I wasn't able to move on. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
The courtroom fell silent as Diddy's composed facade suddenly cracked. His fists clenched, his jaw tightened, and everyone present could feel the tension escalate when Justin Bieber's name echoed through the room. What you're about to witness is the exact moment when Diddy lost control during day 2 of the trial, right after learning that Justin Bieber had publicly declared his support for Cassie. The security had to step in, and what happened next shocked even the judge.
Do you think the person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure. It was dark. So I'm very, very grateful to have influences in my life that have played a huge part in me seeing their relationship with Jesus and their relationship with their wives and their relationship with their kids and saying, that's what I want. But I want to definitely tell my story so that if that resonates to anybody, that they can hopefully, but yeah, just protecting those moments, because people take for granted encounters and
Wow, I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. That was bad.
Yeah.
Wow, look at your eyes. Look at what a beautiful...
Bieber turned 15, and it suddenly seemed that Hollywood was keen to almost initiate him. I think that's the right word. Like there was almost like this initiation that he needed to go through. So I want you to be now super uncomfortable and watch this video of an interaction between him and none other than Diddy. Take a listen.
Justin, you ever seen the movie The Times of Their Lives, where we hanging out and what we doing? We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full.
Young Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher, involved with Scooter Braun. Now, all of a sudden, he's being put in the hands of Diddy, who, it is true, he became the legal guardian for Usher. You can look up all of the allegations of what Diddy did. The allegations are essentially that Diddy very much initiated Usher. As we are going through these lawsuits and Diddy is in prison, we are recognizing that everybody knew. This was an open secret about what Diddy was doing. So it just begs the question, who allowed Justin Bieber to be in the presence of this man, knowing what he was up to? Allegedly up to. That seems to be very clear.
Day 2 started with this weird calm in the courtroom. Diddy walked in surrounded by his expensive legal team, acting all confident. But if you looked closely at his eyes, something was just off. He kept scanning the room like he was looking for someone who might jump out at him. Security wasn't normal that morning either. They added extra guards near Diddy's table, not the usual setup for a celebrity trial. One guard stood directly behind his chair, another by the aisle. It's almost like they got a tip that something might go down. Then Cassie walked in and everyone's heads turned. She wore this simple black dress with a white collar. Nothing flashy, but it made a statement. Her friends formed this protective circle around her, walking her to her seat like bodyguards. The contrast was clear. Diddy with paid security, Cassie with loyal friends. The really interesting part? Diddy couldn't stop checking his phone. He kept pulling it out, scrolling with his thumb, then his face would get darker each time. At one point, his lawyer actually had to reach over and take it from him. That's when I noticed Diddy's hand was shaking. Meanwhile, the prosecution team was acting super weird. They kept passing notes and whispering behind folders. One prosecutor would show something on her tablet to another, and they'd both nod like they just got the final piece of a puzzle. They knew something big was coming. Diddy's main lawyer tried calming him down at least 3 times before the judge even arrived. He'd lean over, say something in Diddy's ear, and put his hand on Diddy's shoulder. But Diddy wasn't having it. He shrugged the guy off every time, once so hard that the lawyer actually had to steady himself on the table. When the judge walked in, her face told a whole story. On day 1, she was all business but relaxed. Today, she looked like a principal who just got told the troublemaker was planning something bad. Her eyes went straight to Diddy's table, and she whispered something to her clerk that made him nod and pick up his phone. What nobody in that room knew yet was that Diddy had seen something on social media just minutes before court started. Something that would make him completely lose it in front of everyone. His team tried to hide his phone, But it was too late. He'd already seen what Justin Bieber posted. The bailiff called everyone to order, and you could feel the tension building with every word. The jurors must have felt it too, because they kept looking at each other, confused about why everyone seemed on edge. One juror even asked for water, her hand visibly shaking as she took the cup. Diddy sat there, his leg bouncing under the table, a vein in his forehead starting to show.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
Forehead starting to show. His lawyer kept placing legal papers in front of him, trying to distract him, but Diddy just pushed them away. He stared straight ahead, his breathing getting heavier by the minute. It was like watching someone try to hold back an explosion. The whole room knew something was about to happen. We just didn't know what would set him off or how bad it would be when it did. The clock on the wall seemed to tick louder as everyone waited for the inevitable. Diddy's perfect image was about to shatter in front of the entire courtroom.
Yeah. So, yeah. I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, you know, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. So, yeah, if she ever needs me, I mean, just think about how young I was and so impressionable. And you have everybody telling me how awesome I am at all times, you know? And like,
It's like taking a kid and putting a kid in a room full of nothing but sweets.
Right.
And just saying, I'll be back in 2 days.
Exactly. I just want people to understand, like, the psychology behind why I potentially could have problems in my life. So.
Meantime, let's talk about the fact that Combs' co-defendant in a civil case, a case, by the way, that accuses him and this co-defendant, another A-lister, of rape. This guy is once again slamming the attorney behind the case, insisting that he be sanctioned for allegedly not doing his job. We're talking, of course, about Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, once again calling out attorney Tony Busby, calling out his character, more specifically into question, claiming that the Texas attorney's filings have, quote, substantial. Now, we've talked about this before, but basically, a civil lawsuit was filed against Sean Combs on behalf of a Jane Doe who says that she was raped by Combs and another celebrity at a home after the Video Music Awards in 2000.
While everyone focused on the drama in court, something huge happened online. Justin Bieber dropped a social media bomb that nobody saw coming. Right in the middle of trial proceedings, Bieber posted a statement supporting Cassie that sent shockwaves through the music industry and into that courtroom. The whole thing hit especially hard because Bieber and Diddy go way back. Remember those videos of teenage Bieber hanging out at Diddy's parties? Diddy used to call himself Justin's mentor and big brother. He even bragged about helping shape Bieber's career. That history made this public statement feel like the ultimate betrayal. This wasn't some vague, sending love and support message either. Bieber got specific. He wrote about being at industry parties where he personally witnessed Diddy's behavior toward Cassie. He mentioned seeing Diddy grab Cassie's arm too hard at an after-party in 2015. He described Diddy cutting Cassie off mid-sentence and speaking for her during interviews. These weren't rumors. These were first-hand observations. During the first court recess, the post spread like wildfire. People in the courthouse hallways huddled in groups, showing each other their phones. One court officer had to remind everyone to turn their devices off before re-entering. Legal assistants printed screenshots for attorneys to review. Even some jurors looked confused by all the hallway whispers, clearly sensing something major had happened. The post included this powerful old photo that spoke volumes. It showed Bieber and Cassie at some music event from years ago, both smiling. But if you looked at Cassie's eyes, there was something there. Bieber's caption said he'd always respected Cassie's strength and was sorry I didn't speak up sooner. For Diddy, the timing couldn't have been worse. Bieber's 270 million followers saw that post within minutes. News sites were already running headlines. This wasn't just celebrity gossip anymore. This was a massive star with credibility taking a clear side during an active trial. Court reporters went crazy. One woman literally ran out of the courtroom to call her editor. Another was frantically typing on her laptop. A reporter from a major network mouthed, "Did you see it?" to his colleague across the aisle. Everyone knew this changed everything about how the public would view this case. The whispers got so loud that one of the bailiffs had to ask people to quiet down. people kept showing each other their phones like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Some looked directly at Diddy, trying to figure out if he knew yet. Others watched Cassie, who maintained perfect composure despite surely hearing the commotion. What made Bieber's statement so powerful was the specific language he used. He called Cassie brave and truthful and wrote that certain behaviors I witnessed years ago troubled me deeply, but I didn't understand the pattern they represented. He even mentioned being disappointed in myself for not recognizing the control dynamics that now seem so obvious. Diddy's attorney saw the post first. He immediately tried damage control, physically blocking Diddy's view of another lawyer's phone, whispering urgently to remove all devices from the table. But someone had already showed Diddy the screen. His eyes locked onto it, widened, and in that moment, everyone close enough saw his face transform. It was already too late.
13 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. The Bieber, Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to his original mentor. So this is a very big story, and the reason why we should discuss this and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon that we are witnessing, Hollywood Babylon, that is. He did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry. And sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen.
Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that, she can count on me. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing. And if she ever needs me, I'm going to be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted.
I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From who?
When Diddy saw Bieber's post, his face changed like someone flipped a switch. First came this look of total shock. His eyes got wide and his mouth actually hung open. Then his eyebrows pulled together as the betrayal hit him. But the scary part was watching that transform into rage. His nostrils flared, and his jaw clenched so tight you could practically hear his teeth grinding. A woman sitting 3 rows back later told reporters that Diddy's hands started shaking uncontrollably. He tried to grab some papers his lawyer handed him, but he couldn't even hold them steady. They slipped right through his fingers and scattered on the floor. That's when everyone started staring. The first real warning sign came when Diddy suddenly stood up. It wasn't a normal, I need to stretch stand-up. It was abrupt and aggressive. The bailiff, who'd been watching him closely all morning, immediately took a step forward. You could tell this wasn't the bailiff's first rodeo with someone about to lose it in court. Then Diddy said something that people in the front rows could hear clearly. After everything I did for that kid, loyalty means nothing anymore. Then something about consequences that made his lawyer physically grab his arm and yank him back into his seat. The lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear, but Diddy just shook his head. His breathing got heavy and labored, like he'd just run upstairs. Court sketches from that moment are honestly disturbing. The artist captured Diddy's expression perfectly. The bulging eyes, the clenched jaw, veins showing in his neck. One sketch artist said she'd never drawn anyone looking so intense in her 12 years covering trials. The prosecutors weren't missing any of this. The lead prosecutor made this subtle hand signal to her assistant, who immediately got up and slipped out the side door. Later, we found out she was telling their team to prepare a specific witness earlier than planned, someone who could speak directly to things Bieber had mentioned in his post. The security guards in the room had this silent conversation with just their eyes. 2 of them shifted positions, moving closer to Diddy's table, without making it obvious. One guard actually unclipped something on his belt, not drawing a weapon, but making sure he could access it quickly if needed. Diddy's whole vibe changed completely. All through the first day and early that morning, he'd been Mr. Cool, sitting up straight, occasionally taking notes, nodding confidently. Now, he looked like a completely different person. He kept fidgeting, running his hand over his face, loosening his tie like it was choking him. Then came the moment that made everything worse. Diddy suddenly slammed his hand on the table, knocking over a water glass that shattered on the floor. As people jumped at the noise, he whispered something that the court reporters sitting nearby clearly heard. "I'll make sure he never works in this town again. Neither of them will." His lawyer actually had to wrap an arm around Diddy's shoulders to keep him in his seat. The judge wasn't having any of it. She banged her gavel and called for an immediate 15-minute recess. But that break only gave Diddy more time to stew in his anger as his legal team huddled around him, their faces showing pure panic. Those 15 minutes would prove to be exactly what Diddy didn't need. Time to get even more worked up before Cassie resumed after the recess. Something about Cassie had changed. She walked to the witness stand with her shoulders back and her head high. Instead of staring at the floor like she did on day one, she looked right at the jury members. She didn't try to avoid Diddy's eyes either. She just acted like he wasn't special enough to worry about. Her testimony started with evidence nobody had seen before. The prosecution showed text messages from Diddy to Cassie that made people in the courtroom gasp. In one exchange from 2016, Diddy sent 17 messages in a row demanding to know why she hadn't answered her phone. Another showed him asking for her exact location, down to which room she was in at a hotel. "I need to know where you are every minute," one message read. "That's the deal if you want to keep your career." The room got so quiet you could hear the ceiling fans when Cassie described how Diddy controlled who she could talk to in the industry. "He had a list of male artists I wasn't allowed to speak with unless he was present," she testified. "Justin Bieber was one of them. When I asked why, he told me not to question him. When I did anyway, he grabbed my arm in front of everyone at the after party and whispered that I'd regret it." Cassie's voice never shook or wavered. She spoke clearly about being isolated, monitored, and controlled. The pattern she described matched exactly what Bieber had just shared online: the monitoring, the public control, the private threats. Each detail she provided backed up his statement, making it seem like they had coordinated stories. Though Cassie testified she hadn't spoken to Bieber in years, when the prosecutor asked why she hadn't come forward sooner, her answer hit hard. "He told me nobody would believe me. He said he controlled who worked in this industry and who didn't. I watched him make calls that ended people's careers." Two jurors visibly reacted. One woman wiped tears, while an older man wrote something down and underlined it 3 times. The bombshell moment came when prosecutors played hotel security footage from 2018. The video showed Cassie trying to speak to a male artist in a hotel lobby. Then Diddy appeared, put his arm around her, and led her away. The body language matched exactly what she had just described. Diddy immediately leaned over to his lawyer, whispering frantically and pointing at the screen. Cassie referenced specific events with amazing detail: dates, locations, who else was present. March 8, 2017, at the Standard Hotel in New York. June 22, 2017, at his house in Miami. September 12, 2018, backstage at the VMAs. Each time she named a date, Diddy's lawyer frantically flipped through his notes, looking increasingly worried. She mentioned that other witnesses had been afraid to speak up but were now contacting her lawyers after seeing Bieber's support. "My phone hasn't stopped with messages from people saying they're ready to tell what they saw," she said. Then came the statement that made Diddy completely lose control. Cassie testified that after she once spoke to Bieber at an industry party, Diddy pulled her aside and said, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." With Bieber now publicly supporting her, this threat suddenly looked incredibly damning. As Cassie continued testifying, you could literally watch Diddy falling apart. Each new detail that connected to Bieber's statement made him fidget more, whisper more urgently to his lawyer, and look more panicked. The confident music mogul was disappearing right before everyone's eyes.
And weeks after the initial filing, Busby submitted an amended complaint naming Jay-Z as the celebrity who allegedly participated. They wanted copies of these videos for themselves. And I talked to lawyers about this before. There's a big advantage to having the electronic video, the electronic evidence yourself, right? You don't have to always go over to the other office. You can view the materials on your own. It's a way to better prepare for your defense. And Sean Combs' lawyers argued that under the federal rules of criminal procedure, electronic data that is in the government's possession, Judge Subramanian denied the defense's motion to amend the protective order, but without prejudice, meaning this issue could be revisited. So Subramanian's order reads, quote, "While the government objects to handing the videos over, they provide several options for a defendant to consider that would permit the defense to view the videos, access the information they're looking for, and even allow them to manipulate the video."
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So if she ever needs me, I'm going to be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters, and I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Yeah, if she ever needs me, I'm just a call away.
Do you realize how important your story is? Every time I have a conversation with someone who's been through this unique type of experience, I'm searching for some kind of truth that can help.
I commend you for going there and asking the tough questions and the things that people don't want to talk about, and they don't want to go there because it's revealing, and I want people to take a look at my story, and hopefully my words can make a difference.
Just when everyone thought things couldn't get more intense, the prosecutor walked to the center of the courtroom with a folder. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Combs's claim that Ms. Ventura fabricated these allegations recently. She pulled out her tablet and connected it to the courtroom display system. The screens around the room lit up with text messages between Justin Bieber and Cassie from 2017. The prosecution zoomed in on one exchange that made several jurors lean forward in their seats. Cassie had written, "I don't know what to do anymore. He monitors everything. He said if I talk to anyone, he'll make sure I never work again." Bieber's response read, "This isn't normal, Cass. What he's doing isn't okay. You need to talk to someone who can help." The moment those messages appeared, Diddy shot up from his chair. The sound of it scraping across the floor made everyone jump. His face was bright red, his eyes bulging. The composed music mogul was completely gone. His attorney grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back down. "Sean, don't do this," he whispered loud enough for the front rows to hear. But Diddy wasn't listening. He actually shoved his lawyer's hand away so hard the man stumbled backward. "This is all lies!" Diddy shouted, pointing at Cassie. "You know damn well that's not what happened. Where's your loyalty after everything I did for you?" His voice got louder with each word. "You're making this all up, both of you!" The judge immediately banged her gavel 3 times. "Mr. Combs, sit down immediately or I will have you removed." Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife, but Diddy wasn't stopping. 2 security officers moved toward the defense table fast. One positioned himself between Diddy and Cassie, while the other approached from behind. Court reporters typed frantically, capturing every word of this unplanned meltdown. The jury watched in total shock. One older woman in the back row actually covered her mouth with her hand. A younger man in the front row leaned away from Diddy, physically distancing himself from the outburst. "Your Honor, we need a recess," Diddy's lawyer shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. But Diddy was already turning toward the evidence screen, pointing at the messages. "Those are fake. They fabricated those messages." He was gesturing wildly now, his voice echoing off the walls. "This is a setup. Justin never said that." The evidence was devastating to Diddy's case. These messages from 5 years ago completely contradicted his claim that Cassie made up allegations to get money or fame. She had been confiding in Bieber about the exact same behavior patterns years before filing any lawsuit. The judge slammed her gavel again. "Remove the jury immediately," she ordered the bailiff. As the 12 men and women filed out, most of them couldn't help staring at Diddy, who was still standing and shouting. The security guards moved in, one on each side of him. "Sir, you need to calm down now," one said firmly, placing a hand on Diddy's shoulder. For a moment, it looked like Diddy might actually shove the officer too. Instead, he finally fell silent, breathing hard as the reality of what just happened seemed to hit him. The damage was done. The controlled image Diddy had maintained for decades had shattered in front of everyone. And as the security officers stood guard at his sides, the world got to see a very different side of the music mogul, one that made Cassie's allegations suddenly seem far more credible. With the jury safely out of the room, Judge Marlowe didn't hold back. She stood up behind the bench, pointed directly at Diddy, and delivered the smackdown of the century. "Mr. Combs, this is a court of law, not a recording studio. You do not control what happens here." Her voice cut through the room like a knife. "One more outburst like that and I will hold you in contempt. You'll spend the remainder of this trial in a cell, making appearances only when necessary." She wasn't done. The judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation to be completed before the next day's proceedings. Then she imposed new security protocols. 2 officers would remain within arm's reach of Diddy at all times. His lawyers couldn't even speak to him without an officer present. His phone privileges were completely revoked. Diddy's legal team huddled in the corner of the courtroom like a football team down by 40 points. The head attorney kept shaking his head while another one made frantic calls. A third lawyer was desperately writing notes, occasionally looking up at Diddy with a face that screamed, "We're in trouble!" Their body language told the whole story. They knew their case had just taken a massive hit. When the jury came back in, their reactions were impossible to miss. A middle-aged woman in the front row physically shifted her chair slightly away from the defense table. An older man who had been taking detailed notes now sat with his arms crossed, pen untouched. Most telling was juror number 8, a young professional who had smiled at Diddy on day 1 but now wouldn't even look in his direction. Meanwhile, the prosecution team maintained perfect poker faces, but you could tell they were pleased. The lead prosecutor organized her papers calmly, occasionally glancing at Diddy with what looked like satisfaction. Her assistant even had to hide a small smile behind her hand at one point. Security didn't mess around for the rest of the day. 2 officers stood directly behind Diddy's chair, not even pretending to be casual anymore. Another stood at the courtroom door, hand resting on his belt. The message was clear to everyone. They weren't taking any chances with Diddy's behavior. Legal experts sitting in the gallery couldn't contain themselves. A former federal prosecutor whispered to the person next to him, "He just lost right there." Law professors who'd come to observe the case were writing frantically in their notebooks. One defense attorney from another high-profile case shook his head and muttered, "Amateur hour." Through it all, Cassie was a statue of composure. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, expression neutral. When Diddy had his outburst, she didn't flinch, didn't react, didn't give him the satisfaction of showing fear. The contrast couldn't have been more striking, her complete control versus his total lack of it. As day 2 wrapped up, the difference from the morning was dramatic. Diddy had strutted in like he owned the place, designer suit crisp, smile confident. Now he shuffled out with his tie loosened, surrounded by lawyers who looked like they'd aged 10 years in one afternoon. His eyes stayed on the floor, avoiding the reporters who packed the hallway. The most revealing moment, when Diddy's main lawyer put his hand on his client's back to guide him out. Diddy shrugged it off, just like he had that morning. But this time, it wasn't from confidence. It was from defeat. What we saw in that courtroom wasn't just about evidence, it was about character. Cassie stayed calm and strong, while Diddy completely fell apart when Justin Bieber took her side. Their true personalities came out under pressure. Let's be real. The jury watched Diddy lose control and threaten people in open court. That moment probably decided this case already, no matter what other evidence shows up later. The biggest question now? Who else will speak up? Justin Bieber just broke the unspoken celebrity rule of protecting each other. That door is wide open now, and more stars might walk through it against Diddy.